welcome to the Nik Nak Podcast YouTube channel. This is going to be the first of our daily fantasy videos that we're going to be putting up. Those of you that are daily fantasy veterans and just are here to find out some players that you can potentially pick for your lineups this week, welcome. Those of you that are new, I'll try to explain some of the ins and outs of daily fantasy as we go along here. So I'm going to be focusing mainly on 50-50 competitions for this video. What a 50-50 competition is, mainly you enter a competition with, let's say, 100 people. Top 50 win, bottom 50 don't. You get about double your money back. FanDuel and DraftKings got to make their money somewhere, so they kind of take a little bit out. So you make a little less than half of your money back. But nonetheless, if you finish the top half, you win. You finish in the bottom half, you do not. So what you're going to be focusing on here is picking players that have high floors. So you want to make sure that they're all scoring a certain amount of points each week, guys who are relatively safe. None of these lottery tickets. You don't want guys who are going to be like deep threats that are maybe get 3 catches for 2 touchdowns a game, or they get 0. So we're going to stay away from people like that for the sake of this. So we'll start at quarterback. All my prices that I'm going to quote here, by the way, are from FanDuel. And some of the stats are going to be from FanDuel as well. So DraftKings and Yahoo people, the same concept is going to apply. There's not much of a difference in the rankings. There might be a little bit here and there, but for the most part, these are the players I like for this Sunday if you're going to be entering a 50-50 competition. So at quarterback, guys like Cam Newton, who have a really juicy matchup with the San Francisco 49ers at $9,000 is kind of a high price for him, so I'm kind of going to stay away from him here. Just $900 less than him, you got Eli Manning, who gets to host the New Orleans Saints this week. Last week he had an okay game, 207 yards, 3 touchdowns on 19 completions against Dallas. Dallas was controlling the clock for much of the game, so Eli didn't get many chances, but even then adds 3 touchdowns, Larry Donnell, Sterling Shepard, and we see the return of Victor Cruz, which is a great thing for the New York Giants offense. Odell Beckham almost gets a touchdown on his own, but gets stopped short of the goal line, and they punch it in later, but that offense should be clicking at home. A New Orleans defense, we saw the explosion they had with the Raiders this week. There's no defense there. So expect Eli to have a big game at home. A few $100 less than him is Matthew Stafford, who had 39 pass attempts this past week. And against Indianapolis, they host the Tennessee Titans this week. He's going to have plenty of passing attempts again, but it should be another offensive back-and-forth game, just like he had with the Indianapolis Colts last week, and put up plenty of points last week with 26 fantasy points to add on FanDuel. So if you don't leave yourself enough money to spend on a quarterback, the cheapest option that I can see worth playing this week is Trevor Siemian. I know we all saw him Thursday night, not the best game to start out on, but he started picking it up as it went on. He started getting better chemistry with Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, and at $6,400, it's a pretty cheap price tag for a guy playing at home against a very bad defense that gave up a lot of points to Matt Stafford, who we just talked about a few minutes ago last week. And when you're setting your lineup, if you want to pay up elsewhere and leave your quarterback for last, you can do a lot worse than Trevor Siemian this week. There's a lot of quarterbacks with bad matchups. So we're gonna move on to running back. As much as it pains me to say this as a Redskins fan, Ezekiel Elliott coming to town. We saw D'Angelo Williams on Monday night rush for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I don't think that's going to change with Ezekiel Elliott and that offensive line coming to Washington. Washington's D-line is non-existent. They couldn't stop anything that night, and I don't think that's going to change. Ezekiel Elliott's going to have a field day against our defense at home. It's going to be essentially a home game because Dallas always takes over our stadium. So I think it's at $3,900. You can pay up a little bit, but I think he's a pretty good play, and I think that he's worth the price tag. Matt Forte at $6,800. Last week he has 155 total yards, just like the guy we saw in Chicago. Only now he's in the New York Jets jersey. They're at Buffalo. He's a solid second running back to have in your lineup, and I think that he's gonna have. If you can get a guy that can give you 100 yards for that price tag, it's definitely worth it. And then just go further down there. The guy who replaced him, Jeremy Langford, at $6,500. Gets the Phillies at home this week. Isaiah Crowell had success against them, even though they knew that they were going to be running the ball with RG3 struggles at quarterback, and now he's not the quarterback anymore. So they should be able to move a little bit more on offense. Should have less defenders in the box. You can expect Jeremy Langford to kind of have some success against the Philadelphia Eagles this week. Moving to wide receiver, AJ Green, incredible week 1, 12 catches, 180 yards, and a touchdown. This week he's going to get the Pittsburgh Steelers. Deshaun Jackson had 4 catches for 103 yards against them. AJ Green is much more diverse in his skill set than Deshaun Jackson is. I expect him to tear that defense apart. And I think it's going to be worth the price tag again at $8,900 for him. And out of all wide receivers, AJ Green's always had the highest floor. So he fits the bill perfectly for this week. Right below him at $8,300, we got DeAndre Hopkins. We all remember the first round of the playoffs where Kansas City came into Houston and embarrassed them in front of their home crowd at 30-0. And Brian Hoyer played probably the worst game of quarterbacks ever played. Big reason why they went out and got Brock Osweiler was that, and DeAndre Hopkins this week should be motivated to come out and perform against Kansas City Chiefs to avenge that playoff loss. And with the emergence of Will Fuller, you might not see as much attention going towards DeAndre Hopkins. He's still gonna be the best receiver on the field, and I'm sure he's gonna be the focal point of the defense. But you won't see them shaded over as much as they probably were last year in this scenario. So look for him to have a big game this week. He's definitely gonna be motivated to do so. We talked about the Denver Broncos already. Emmanuel Sanders is a guy I like a lot this week. $6,700 going against Indy's poorest defense. He started to have more of a rapport with Trevor Siemian as the game went on last week, and he had he ended the game with 8 targets. And I think if he connects on those against that defense, he should be able to make a big play or two out of it. And I think that he's at $6,700. He's definitely a safe play for that price. Another guy who is Stephon Diggs, the number 1 wide receiver in Minnesota. Sean Hill definitely looked at him a lot last week. He finished with 103 yards in week 1. This week he gets Green Bay Packers at home. I think it's a good matchup. Sean Hill clearly looks at him. He's gonna be getting the targets in that offense, and I think that he's gonna have a pretty solid week. Going to tight end, no team gave up more points to the tight end last year than the Detroit Lions, and this week they get Delaney Walker at home. I think Delaney Walker is gonna be a pretty good, probably the play at tight end this week. Don't pay up for Rob Gronkowski, who might not play. Don't pay up for Jordan Reed against Dallas, who isn't very good against the tight end, but for almost $1,000 less on FanDuel, you can get yourself a Delaney Walker, who and against Detroit. And if you want to go cheaper than that tight end, the guy on the other side of the ball, Eric Ebron, going against Tennessee, had a big week last week. Took over some of those red zone targets that we saw vacated by Calvin Johnson. So I think that he's definitely finding a place in that offense. And at home, you should be able to see some production out of him. Real quickly with kicker and defense, I always give me the guy who's kicking at altitude at home against a bad defense. He's going to have plenty of chances. That's Brandon McManus, kicker for the Denver Broncos. At $4,700 is right in the middle of the pack with kickers. I think that he's a solid choice right there. Should be getting plenty of chances for 50, 40-yard field goals and get you plenty of points on there. At defense, I'm going to go in the reverse order on this one. So the cheaper one is going to be the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Cleveland Browns. My prediction is they're going to be the most popular choice at defense this week. And if you're talking about 50-50, you want the safest defense, but at the same time, you don't want the guy who everybody else has, because them putting up a lot of points, it doesn't benefit you a lot, because you're gonna be getting the same points as everybody else. So you want a solid defense, but at the same time, you don't want the same one as everybody else, because you need to set yourself apart so you can get the points that jump you ahead of somebody else. In 50-50, it doesn't matter if you finish first or near the middle line. You're going to win the same amount, so it doesn't matter as much here. But in this case, I think you should pay the premium and get the Carolina defense against San Francisco this week. San Francisco will be traveling cross-country, coming off their Monday night game. I think it's going to be they're going to be tired. It's a whole lot of factors go into why this is the matchup that you probably want this week. And Carolina was the defense I picked. So just to recap the lineup that I picked out of everything that I talked about so far, I had Matt Stafford at quarterback, Ezekiel Elliott, and Jeremy Langford at running back, AJ Green, Emmanuel Sanders, and Stephon Diggs at wide receiver, Eric Ebron at tight end, Brandon McManus at kicker, and the Carolina defense. So hopefully you guys agree with some of my picks. If you don't, let me know in the comments below. We're going to have a few of these videos up every week, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for checking out the Nik Nak Podcast YouTube channel. Check out the Nik Nak Podcast, available on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. All right, we'll be back.